Okay, so today we'll look at the human excretory system, which is the urinary system. And then before we start, I'll say we thank God for yet another day. And we ask for his mercies and guidance that in all that we will do, we will be able to give the right insight when it comes to human anatomy and application in the medical laboratory science. So, amen. Today we'll be looking at the human excretory system, which is basically the urinary system. That is the main human excretory system. So what is the excretory system about? The excretory system is about the system that is within the body that is in place to remove waste metabolic substances from the body. So when we take the human excretory system, by the end of the lecture, we should be able to understand the concept of excretion, see if we can provide the organs that are involved in the excretion process, look at the relations pertaining to these excretory processes, and state the waste products involved in excretion. And then basically the anatomy of the urinary system, we should be able to explain that. Then when it comes to some clinical importance, we should be able to understand what the urinary system is all about. So as I said, excretion is basically the removal of waste metabolic cellular substances, where those cellular substances that are produced from the blood and tissues eventually will be taken out of the body, whether it is be in the blood or any other tissue cell. It can be in the air. But these are the main excretory organs within the body. We have the liver, we have the lungs, we have the skin, and then we have the kidneys. And this performs the basic role that is the main excretory organ in the body, that's the kidney. Now, as we said, although the urinary system has a major role in excretion, the other organs that are into this excretory process. As I mentioned earlier, we have the liver, the kidney, the lungs, and then the skin. Each of them have their own excretory products that they give out. The lungs, in effect, are able to take out carbon dioxide and some water out of the system. The skin will take out some body waste substance such as the sweat that is made up of some number of salts, including some urea and other stuffs. The liver also will excrete bile. The liver actually is an excretory product that is stored in the gallbladder that is actually used in the coloration of the fecal matter. So the bile, aside the other functions, that's another function it also do. So the liver, which converts nitrogenous waste substance from the breakdown of protein into urea, excretes them through the bile. Whilst you realize that the major task of excretion will always go to the kidney. So these are some of the cellular waste substances that are taken out. The heat, we have water, salts, carbon dioxide, urea. Heat will come out through the sweat, so through the skin, some water too. Also some form of heat is also taken out from the exhaled air and some moisture. Salt will be coming out from the sweat, carbon dioxide also from the lungs, and urea from the liver. So this is how waste excretory metabolic substances will be taken out. Now, if you do not have a system that will kind of take these waste metabolic substances out of the body, the buildup in the cells is going to lead to excretion, a poisonous substance that can lead to a lot of serious illness and eventually cause death, because it is going to subject the body to acidosis, and where the whole system is subjected to some form of different blood pH, which is not very conversant or convenient for the body to kind of stand against and work. So this waste is also taken out to make sure the right environment is given to the cells so that they can actually perform their functions. So the liver, some of the functions of the liver, we are going to see it detoxifies blood, and then it filters bacteria that is in the detoxification process. One thing you have to know that whatever you take into the body through the oral system is going to be checked by the liver. So that is why it is unnecessary to put your liver under strenuous conditions, such as alcoholism, too much of drug, and other stuffs that can pose your body to serious threat. So the liver is always in constant check when it comes to functions within the body. And what it does is that it changes some of these toxify active agents to inactive or less toxify or toxic forms. And it also excretes bile. These bile are actually worn out red blood cells, some lots of bile salts, which are bilirubin and bilirubin, and then cholesterol. This is some substance which is found within the blood, okay, which also involves some form of emulsification. So when we take the liver will be found within the abdominal region. We'll be looking at that when we come to GIT anatomy. Then the liver also forms urea, where it changes toxic waste into urea. Some of the toxic waste, as we see, are ammonia, which can actually come from the breakdown of amino acid. So this urea will be be delivered into the bloodstream, and the bloodstream eventually gives it to the kidneys, which will filter these dangerous waste substances out to give rise to our urine that we actually take out. So the urine is just telling us a watery form of urea. Aside urea, there are other components within the urine that is secreted, not only urea. The next thing is the lungs. We did some, especially those in AD, we've done some respiratory histology. And then you realize that the alveoli is the main point of exchange between, or gaseous exchange, where carbon dioxide will go into the alveolar, and then oxygen will diffuse out of the alveolar into the bloodstream. So when this happens, it gives the body some form of relief, in that if this were to be delayed in the system, it is going to lead to some form of formation of weak carbonic acid, which is going to cause some form of intensified lowered pH, and then give a rise to some form of problems within the body. The skin, in another round, is going to, in the other sense, helps to do some form of ventilation to the body, and then it is going to allow for cooling of the body. Yes, we know the skin has sweat pores, and then this is where we have a lot of perspiration taking place, where evaporating cooling is done, which contains 99% of water and some form of sweat salts, some salts that are taken out. So in the excretion or in evaporative cooling, the substances that are going out is we have water, mineral salts, and then urea. So this is how the excretory system works. Then the other excretory system is the urinary system, where there is the major system that is concerned with homeostasis of body fluid. So it is just telling us that most of the excretory waste substances are taken out of the body through the kidney. The kidney filters the waste metabolic substances. So this is the presentation of the excretory system. Now, the kidney system or the urinary system is actually made up of the kidneys, which are the main excretory organs. The ureters are the ones that are found here. They come out of the kidney to connect the urine or to transport the urine to the bladder, urinary bladder. And then the urinary bladder will expel urine through the urethra, So this is the formation of the urinary system. So when you look at the kidney, we have two kidneys in the body, one at the left and one at the right. So normally the left kidney, which is this one, the picture is being taken from the back. So it's not laterally inverted. The left kidney, but this is laterally inverted. It's a bit higher than the right kidney. So the anatomical description of these two kidneys is giving us the superior surface of the left kidney is superior to the superior surface of the right kidney. So it is just showing us that that is the kidney. Now, the kidney is made up of a lot of nephrons, which we'll come and talk about, glomerulus and urine eventually. So now let's start with the anatomy of the urinary system. Before the anatomy of the urinary system, do we have any questions? Any questions? I guess there are no questions, so I'll continue with the anatomy of the urinary system. So at the end of the system, we should be able to describe the various organs and structures that are placed or that are put in place to perform this task. Also look at the functions of these organs and then the anatomical relations. Look at their internal architecture based on anatomy. So when we take the human machinery, the circulatory system is the main regulator when it comes to of transport between all the other systems. So you take in food, water, and then it gets into the digestive system. And then the nutrient, water, and salt gets into the circulatory system. However, those that are undigested, the undigested food or residues will be taken out via the GIT through the anus. The circulatory system is going to circulate these nutrients to the tissues and then the organs. And then oxygen is also taken from the respiratory system, delivered to the circulatory system, where rapid respiration takes place in the tissues to deliver the tissues with energy. And then the release of carbon dioxide into the respiratory system back, and then it is taken out. So carbon dioxide is eliminated. Then eventually 25% of cardiac output will get to the urinary system, where we have most of the elimination of waste metabolic substances. So the renal system, also known as the urinary system, will produce, store, and eliminate urine. And then kidney is the one that is responsible for making up this urine. And then urine will travel, as I explained earlier, through the ureters stored in the bladder, and then eventually gets into the system. So this is just to show the anatomical position of the kidney. The kidneys are within the abdominal cavity. They are not really in the abdominal cavity. We call them, they are in the retroperitoneal cavity, a part of the abdominal cavity. They are not in the peritoneum, but they're actually in the retroperitoneal. They are lying on the back muscle, the back, all of the back. So we call that retroperitoneal. So that is to show the two kidneys, and then the two ureters, the bladder, and then the ureter. So this is forming and giving us the architecture of the urinary system. I've already explained the functions of the urinary system, but let's look at what the kidney actually does aside producing of urine. So one thing we have to know is that when blood gets 25% of cardiac output gets into the urine, into the kidney, and the kidney filters this blood and check the amount of electrolytes within this blood, the kidney is actually regulating blood volume. So you know that when there is too much salt somewhere, water will follow it. So the kidney used a form of osmosis to regulate blood volume and blood pressure. So, and it also checks for electrolyte balance. And then one thing is that the kidney is also responsible for secreting erythropoietin, which helps in the production of RBCs. The ureter is a transporter of urine. Then the bladder is a storage for urine. And then the urethra will also expel the urine out. So when we are now beginning the anatomy proper. So the kidneys are like bean shape, which are retroperitoneal in the body. They weigh averagely by around 150 grams. And then they are a bit big. As I said, they are retroperitoneal. And then they are found actually between the level of the 12th thoracic vertebrae to the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. And then they receive some protection from the lower ribs from the back, that is the false ribs. And then the right kidney is a bit slightly lower as compared to the left kidney. This is because of the surface that is being pushed by the liver. You realize that the liver is a bit descended at the right part as compared to the left part. This compels the kidney to be a bit pushed down when you are comparing that to the left kidney. So anatomically, this is the diagrammatic presentation. We have, this is the left kidney and this is the right kidney. You can see that the left kidney is a bit superior to the not entirely superior, so just the surface, the superior surface of the left kidney is superior to the superior surface of the right kidney. And we can also see that the duodenum, the first part of the duodenum, is actually a bit associated. It's anterior to the ventral surface of the right kidney. So that is for the description of the anatomical relations of the kidney. Then the other thing is that the kidney also has some glands on top of them known as the adrenal glands or the suprarenal glands, which are having endocrinous functions. They release adrenaline or epinephrine into the body. And then I hope by now from physiology and then biochem, you know the essence of adrenaline and then epinephrine in the body. Now, when we look at the supportive tissues of the kidney, now the kidney lies within the retroperitoneal phase, part of the abdomen. So this is the kidney that we are seeing. The kidney is actually encapsulated with the fibrous capsule first. Then after the fibrous capsule, we have the perirenal fat. This is the perirenal fat, which actually hold the kidney in place. When you decide to exercise too much, such that this perirenal fat bends, then it is going to lead to a condition termed as hydronephrosis. And hydronephrosis can cause dangling movement of the kidney, which will cause what? A repel of fluid back into the kidney, hence put your kidney at a failure. After the perirenal fat, we have the renal fascia, and then the renal fascia is actually seen over here, and it covers the kidney. So these are the three protections of the kidney. The renal capsule, which is tightly attached to the renal parenchyma itself. Then we have the perirenal fat, and then we have the renal fascia. Now that we've seen the exterior surface of the renal part, now the renal has a concave surface, and then it has a convex surface. The concave surface is made up of entry of blood vessels and the ureter, which is known as the renal hilus. Now, the renal, in the hilum of the renal, the kidney, we have the renal vein and then the renal artery emerging together with the pelvis, that is the ureter. So these things get into the kidney. And when we look at the inside of the kidney, the internal anatomy show us the renal cortex, which is the most exterior part of the kidney after the renal capsule. And then we have the renal medulla, within which you have the presentations of the pyramids. The pyramid contains the nephrons. Then the pyramids are continued with the minor calyces. The minor calyce, 2 or 3 minor calyces come together to form a major calyce. And then the major calyce comes to form the renal pelvis, and the renal pelvis continue as the ureter into the urinary bladder. Now, when we take the kidney, the cortex, which is the side I showed you, is actually made up of 2 main layers. We have the cortical cortex and then the juxtamedullary cortex. And then the medulla, as I said, contains the renal pyramid. So when we take the kidney, this is the interior surface of the kidney. The side that is actually nearer to the renal capsule, these sides, they are known as the cortical layer of the renal cortex. Whilst the side that is nearer to the medulla, where the pyramids are, let's say nearer to this side, they are known as the juxtamedullary cortex of the kidney. So from the earlier diagram, the minor calyces and the major calyces, they are just like funnel shape that will kind of direct the urine produced into the renal pelvis, which gets out from the renal or the ureter. So looking at this better, this is the pyramid, this is the cortical cortex, and this is the juxtamedullary cortex. This is the pyramid again. Each pyramid is connected to a minor calyx. 2 minor calyces come together to form a major calyx. And then all the major calyces come to form the renal pelvis. And then the pelvis continues as the ureter. Now, within the kidney, we have the basic and functional unit of the kidney known as the nephron. So the nephrons are actually located within the cortex, and then some aspect of it goes into the medulla. but most of the nephrons are found in the cortical layer of the renal cortex. Well, so about 80% of the nephrons are found in the cortical layer of the renal cortex. And then you have about 20% found in the juxtamedullary layer of the renal cortex. So when we say a renal lobe, this is a pyramid. This is a pyramid. And then this pyramid, when it continues from this medullary layer all the way to the top of the kidney or to the cortical layer. This is now known as the renal lobe. Let me quickly go to the whiteboard to demonstrate that. So for instance, if this is the pyramid, then there is another pyramid. And then there is another pyramid. And they are found in this kidney. This side is the cortical cortex. And then this side is the juxtamedullary cortex. Juxtamedullary cortex. So if you're talking about a renal lobe, which I'll use the green, it contains this pyramid and then its associated cortical layer. So this is one renal cortex. That is the meaning of a renal cortex. Let's go back to the slide. So that is a renal cortex I tried to show earlier. So looking at this, showing us the cortex. And then these are the medulla. This is the renal capsule itself, the minor calyces. And then this is a major callus, and then the renal pelvis and the urethra. So I showed you this is the hilum where the blood vessels and then the ureter emerges out of the kidney. And then the cortex together with the medulla forms the main parenchyma of the kidney substance. So we are showing a lobe of the kidney. We are showing a lobe. So this is a renal lobe, as we said, a renal pyramid and its associatory cortical layer. So this is the renal lobe, the whole thing. So we'll be looking at circulation of blood and substances very soon, and then we'll get to understand that. That I will do on the whiteboard. So this is also showing more of, so these things that you are seeing here are all blood vessels. The red ones are the arteries, and then the blue ones are the veins. We are going to look at how these things eventually cause elimination of waste metabolic substances. So here you'll be looking at the cortex. You can see one cortex here. So this is a renal cortex, and then this renal cortex, you can see the nephron. This is a nephron. This whole thing is a nephron. It's another nephron, and they are all sending, they are collecting that into the papillae of the renal minor callus. So this is the papillae of the minor callus, and then that is where the urine will be drained into. We have over trillions of these things. So the least amount of cardiac output that is given to the kidney, essential work is done. That is why it is very disastrous when your kidney tends to fail. It's very disastrous when your kidney tends to fail. So when you look at this, this is more of a cortical nephron, and this is more of a juxtamedullary nephron. So a cortical nephron will be the renal cortex, where the nephron we can find in the cortical layer of the renal cortex. And then the juxtamedullary nephron will be the nephrons we can find within the juxtamedullary layer of the renal cortex. Yes, Ima, you can ask your question.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Please, I wanted to ask that the position of the nephrons, sorry, the kidney. You said the right one is, the left one is a little bit upper than the right one. I want to ask, in a disease like nephroptosis, whereby we have a floating kidney, is it because there is a defect with the liver, that is why it has made the kidney to float, or is because of the cortical side, or the medulla the juxtamedular side that is being faulty, that has made the liver, that has made the kidney to float? That's my first question. And second question is, you said with the excretion, whatever enters the body first will be checked by the liver. But we have only one liver, then we have two kidneys. And more often we hear of people having a liver that is, sorry, having their kidney not working, and that they are placed on dialysis. But it's not rare with the liver. So I don't know if someone someone is being exposed something like frequent intake of alcohol, which will it be in the kidneys?
The last part of your question wasn't clear, so if you can come back with the last part of your question. Hello, Emmanuel.
Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. The last part of your question wasn't coming. So.
Yeah, I was saying that looking at the liver and the kidney, you said whatever comes into the body is first checked by the liver. So if someone likes to take in alcohol and at the end of the day gets the kidney destroyed, but you see, we have one liver, then you have two kidneys, but people are often said to be diagnosed with their kidneys being destroyed and being they're being on dialysis. So I want to ask, the liver and the kidney, which one will be more prone to danger when you take such toxic substances or like alcohol into the body? Because we often hear of kidneys being damaged than liver. I don't know if that's the case.
Okay. So the very first one, nephroptosis, is that not so? If you did remember when I was doing our discussion, I mentioned something like hydronephrosis. Nephroptosis is when you have a floating kidney where the nephrons are displaced. Is that not so? So what is happening is that you see the perirenal fat I explained to you earlier. Let me see if I can move quickly to that side. It's floating. So you have a floating kidney when this is actually not well formed. So it could be an embryological disorder. It could also be a genetic disorder, or it can also be a sort of traumatic stress, or it could be any form of injury that is happening. So when you have this perirenal fat not holding the kidneys in place, you could have this floating kidney, and that can lead to a lot of problems, such as the hydronephrosis I have explained earlier. So the floating kidney is not due, I don't really get it's not due to the essence of what you are trying to say, but rather mainly due to this anatomical displacement of the perirenal fat. Then when we come to the case of, how do we call it? The liver not really getting destroyed as compared to the kidney, What you have to know is that the very first thing is that, as I said, the liver checks anything that comes into your blood, into your system first. But if you did remember, I said anything that gets into the body via the oral cavity, that is when the liver can check it. But if you just take anything into the systemic system directly, that is like you give someone an injection. The injection will not be checked by the liver. We call something hepatic bypass. That hepatic bypass means that you have what? The substance trying to not get into the liver. That is why you have things that you do injections performing their activities more quickly than oral medicines. So that man, so give me injection, let me be fast. Yeah, it's because it is not going to pass through this long oral cavity and also gets through the hepatic portal system that is going to check all these things there. I get him. However, eventually, if you subject yourself to strenuous intake of what? Alcohol, substance, always, it is the liver that gets more damaged, not the kidneys. The kidneys will only get damaged when there is so much pressure from the cardiovascular system to it. In that, you do not have enough volume of blood in the system, you can also be having kidney problems. And the kidneys are the one that is directly into contact with the cardiovascular system from the arterial system, from the heart. So 25%, if you did remember, 25% of cardiac output will reach the kidneys. So for instance, when my blood pumps, my heart pumps blood now, and it descends through the descending aorta, and it reaches the abdominal aorta, the renal arteries are going to take about 25% of this chunk of blood and then send it to the kidney. So the pressure that is coming from the heart is also relayed to the kidney. So if you have too much toxic substances in the blood, that also compels the kidney to overperform its actions. So you have to know that the liver, even though it is one, is very much serious when it comes to working pertaining to the check of foods. But one thing you know is that anything that comes through the oral canal that is being checked, anything aside that is not being checked. Whatever you inject into the body will be eventually filtered out by the kidneys. So the kidneys are the main excretory organs of the body. So if you have too much substances within the kidney, which exposes your nephrons to nephritis, where you do not have a lot of filtration, proper filtration working, then you subject yourself to renal failure and you see yourself in a dialysis section. Does it make any sense?
Yes, sir.
Does it make any sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now let's look at how blood gets into the supply of blood into the kidneys. So I was showing you this as the cortical nephron and this as the juxtamedullary nephron. And then to show you, this is a destroyed kidney, which is not very normal, not very beautiful. We can see these are the pyramids over here. These are the renal pyramids. And then from the renal pyramids, we can see the minor calyces, and this is a major callus. Connecting this minor callus to this minor callus, you have the major callus over there. And then the major calyces will come together to form the renal pelvis. And then the renal pelvis continues as the ureter. Then eventually, this is the supply of blood from the renal artery. And then an aspect of the renal artery gives rise to something we call the suprarenal artery, which actually sends the blood to the suprarenal glands on the supra surface of the kidney. So let's look at how blood eventually reaches the kidney. So I will do that going to the whiteboard. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the heart very small. So this is someone's heart. Let's see, that is Chronicle's heart. And then the heart has an aorta which receives blood. So the aorta, so we have this is the ascending aorta. So this is the ascending aorta. This is the arc of the aorta. And then this is the descending aorta. Now, when it descends, it actually passes the back. And then we have this called the thoracic aorta. So this is the thoracic aorta. Now, at the diaphragmatic section, it passes through the diaphragmatic hiatus. And then through the diaphragmatic hiatus, it descends as an abdominal aorta. And then at the level of L1, between L1 and L2, the aorta will give a branch known as the renal artery, one to the left and one to the right. So this renal artery, a bit nearer, will give rise to suprarenal gland. This is the suprarenal gland. Sorry, suprarenal artery. And the rest continues as the renal artery. So this is the renal artery. So this renal artery will give rise into the kidney, passes the hilum of the kidney and gets into the substance of the kidney. So that is for the renal artery. But as it moves into the kidney, let us see what is going to happen. I'm going to draw the kidney very big so that you'll be able to look at what we are talking about. So I'm going to draw the kidney with, let's say, a brown color because it is brown. So this is the hilum of the kidney. And then this is our big kidney. Now, when this thing enters, the renal artery will get into the pelvic region. Already, we should have what? And the pyramids, which I will draw with violet inside or pink. So we have the pyramids around this area. So when it comes here, it is going to actually branch profuse into the segmental arteries. And then these segmental arteries will also branch severally and pass between the pyramids. So when they pass between the pyramids, then they become what we know as what? Interlobar artery. Interlobar artery. Now this interlobar artery will now act over, they will act over the pyramids. So they'll act over the pyramids. So in here, they are forming something we call the arcuate artery. Now these ones that act over the pyramids will branch profusely into the cortical layer and give a rise to all branches of smaller arterial substance. And that branch that they give into the cortex from the arcuate artery, they would be known as the interlobular artery. Interlobular artery. Then this interlobular, so I'm going to cut this section and expand it here. So I'm expanding this section here. So these interlobular arteries will give rise to renal arteriole. Now this renal arteriole, which is known as the afferent arteriole, will enter into the hey, why is my thing not drawing? Excuse me 1 minute. I think my okay. So this renal artery will enter into the arteriole. Why is this thing still highlighted? Excuse me 1 minute. Let me see. Okay, so let me just continue like that. I'll show that in the slides. I don't know why it is not drawing again. So we have the renal arteriole, which will enter into the glomerular apparatus, okay, into the renal capsule, and then within it branches occur a lot of times to form the glomerular apparatus, and then come out as the efferent arteriole. So the efferent arteriole will continue as the peritubular capillaries, which will actually give nutrients and then substance, oxygen to the renal parenchyma for respiration. Then after that, it comes back as the peritubular veins, and then it comes out into the venous system. So the thing is not drawing again. So let me just use let's go back and see. Okay, I think it will do now. So what I was saying is that you have the glomerular apparatus. So this this is the renal capsule. So this white renal arteriole will come inside here and coil severally and then come out. So it comes out as, so this is the afferent arteriole, and then this is the efferent arteriole. So what happens is that the arterial substance, the glomerulus will filter the things. Whatever it filters will pass through the glomerular apparatus and enter into this part, which we call the PCT, the proximal convoluted tubule. We'll come and look at that later. And then it comes out through here. So from here, this red one will now descend as peritubular capillaries, which will be responsible for exchanging the substance. So I'm drawing this small part, that is what I'm drawing big here, would for gaseous and nutrient exchange in the parenchyma of the kidney. Do we get that part? Now let's go back to the slides and then look at it. So as I was saying, this is the renal artery forming segmental arteries here. And then you go on to find the interlobar artery. And then the interlobar artery will form the aqueous artery over the top of the pyramid, and then gives the interlobular artery. This interlobular artery will be connected to the what? The nephron, okay, via the afferent arteriole. So we'll be looking at that more as we move on. So this is the afferent arteriole from the interlobular artery, and then the afferent arteriole will send blood into the glomerular apparatus, and then the glomerular apparatus will filter whatever is out and gets into the proximal convoluted tubule, and then the blood then comes back into the efferent arteriole, which gets into the peritubular capillaries. Now, the filtration is very important because you realize that the afferent arteriole is bigger than the efferent arteriole. This will allow more blood into the glomerular as compared to the amount of blood that is moving out. So what is going to happen is that it's going to increase the pressure within the nephron. And that pressure is known as the hydrostatic pressure. And this hydrostatic pressure is the one that is going to allow for the movement of substances out of the podocytes of the kidneys or the nephrons, which is going to be conveyed through the proximal convoluted tubule. So all that we are seeing here is known as the renal corpuscle, which is made up of the glomerular apparatus and the Bowman capsule. This is the Bowman capsule. Yes, Emmanuel.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir, please, I want to ask a question about the efferent arteries, the glomerulus, and the peritubular capillary.
Okay.
So you said blood will pass through the efferent artery.
Arteriole.
The
Afferent
arteriole. Yeah, arteriole into the glomerulus, whereby it will be filtrated into the renal tubule. But you see, after it has been filtrated, some of the blood will pass through the efferent arteriole.
It's not that some of the blood will move through the efferent arteriole. What is coming out is just the filters, that's the water and urine. The rest of the blood will come out from the efferent arteriole.
Okay, so when it passes through the efferent arteriole to the peritubular capillary, you see there will be another tubular secretion, whereby substances like excess ions and drugs will be secreted into the renal tubule. So my question is that why is it that when it got to the glomerular state, those substances were not being filtered into the renal tube, but it came to the peritubular capillary before it was secreted to the tube? Is it because the glomerulus is having like small fenestration, or the capillary is having small fenestrations, or That's the question.
If I get your question right, I'm not getting your question well. If I get your question right, you see, what is actually happening is that when the blood comes into the glomerulus, the high hydrostatic pressure within the glomerulus is going to allow for the passage of ions or electrolytes together with water, depending on the amount that is present, into the capsule, which will pass into the proximal convoluted tubule. It's not like it has to come here before it will be filtered. Anything that moves out of the glomerulus into the efferent arteriole is no longer filtered. Do you get that part one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anything that moves out of the glomerulus into the efferent arteriole is no longer filtered. So what happens?
Yes.
What happens is that anything that is filtered moves into the proximal convoluted tubule, and it passes through the tubular system of the nephron. It is within the tubular system that other things like selective reabsorption and then what do we call it? Aside selective reabsorption, we could have what? Water reuptake, and those things are all done within the tubular system. And then this tubular system is in close association with the peritubular capillaries. We will see something down maybe to explain your question for you, okay? So let's move along. And see. So as we said, we have nephrons within the kidney, about 1 to 3 million per each kidney. And the nephrons can be classified in two ways, based on their location and based on substance located within them. So based on their location, nephrons that are seen in the cortical layer are known as the cortical nephrons. And those that are seen in the juxtamedullary layer are known as the juxtamedullary nephrons. So to continue everything, let me just explain the movement again. So when things move from here, they get to the peritubular capillaries, and then the peritubular capillaries do exchange of blood substances for respiration. The rest of the blood goes back. The blood then goes back into the venue system. That is interlobular vein. Okay, let me just go back quickly. So it comes back to the interlobular vein. Then the interlobular vein will take it to the arcuate vein. And then the arcuate vein will continue as the interlobar vein. And then the interlobar veins get into the segmental veins. And then the segmental vein come together to form what? The renal vein. And then the renal vein will then send into the what? The inferior vena cava. And then the inferior vena cava will then relay the information to the heart. So that is how the whole thing is done. So as I said, we can have, based on location, cortical nephron, which are about 80%, and juxtamedullary nephron, which are about 20%. And then we also have vascular nephron, based on what is found within the nephron, that is the components of the nephron. We have vascular nephron and tubular nephron. The vascular nephron is the part of the nephron that has blood within it, and tubular nephron is the part of the blood, the nephron that has urine within it. So we'll be looking at that. So vascular nephron will contain blood. It begins from the afferent arteriole, the glomerulus, and then the efferent arteriole. Whilst the tubular nephron contains urine, which is made up of the Bowman's capsule, which is double-layered epithelium, that is visceral and parietal epithelium. And then what happens is that this is more of histology. We'll do this also in histology. So the visceral layer is formed by something we call podocytes. And then this podocyte will allow for the filtration. The tubular nephron continues from the Bowman capsule. We have the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, the distal convoluted tubule, and then the collecting duct. Now, the loop of Henle is also made up of 3 parts: descending limb, ascending lip, and then the distal convoluted tubule. So looking at it better here, so this is the glomerulus. So Emmanuel, Chronicles, you can look at it better here. So what is happening is that this is the arcuate artery, and then this is the interlobular artery. This interlobular artery will give rise to the afferent arteriole, and this afferent arteriole will continue into the glomerular apparatus, and then after filtration is done, the rest of the blood comes into the peritubular capillaries, and then enter into the peritubular venue, okay, from the capillary. So this whole thing, the blue and the whites are all capillary. So the blood from the peritubular capillary, after it is being used, will enter into the what? The interlobar vein, or directly they can even go to the arcuate vein, depending on the type of what of nephron it is. If it is a cortical nephron, they join the interlobular vein. But if it is a juxtamedullary nephron, they join directly to the arcuate vein. So from the arcuate vein, they move. Let me see if I can see a better picture somewhere. So from the arcuate vein, they move into the interlobular vein, which is between the pyramids, and then descend, and then eventually goes. Now, whatever is filtered here, the blood is just passing through here, and hydrostatic pressure is here. Whatever is filtered here will pass through the proximal convoluted tubule, and then descend through the loop of Henle, which has the ascending limb, and then the descending lip, and then the ascending lip. Come to the distal convoluted tubule and join the collecting duct. So this collecting duct that is descended into the renal papillae of the minor callus. We'll be looking at that very soon. So Chronicles, do you now get how the filtration is done?
Yes, sir. So, but I don't know, maybe you didn't get my question.
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying that, yeah, I understand that like the whatever is being filtered in the glomerulus gets to the proximal convoluted tubule.
Yeah.
And my question is that why is it that the loop of Henle, it's just secretion? So why is it that not all the things were being filtered into the tubule, but some were being secreted after, because all of them joins with the contents in the renal tubule to form the urine? I don't know if you get it.
So your question is that, let's take it one by one. Substances that are filtered here will get into the proximal convoluted tubule. Is that not so?
Yes, sir.
Now, when they get into the proximal convoluted tubule, in the proximal, in the loop of Henle, there are some form of what? Secretion. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, please. From the peritubular capillary.
What I'm saying is that when you have the filtrates, which has the ions and water and substances getting into the loop of Henle, we'll be looking at those things very soon. You see that this loop of Henle is in the parenchyma of the pyramids, which is closely associated with the peritubular capillaries. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Now, what happens is that when these things, for instance, the urine decides the glomerular filters more sodium, and then he realized that there is no much sodium within the blood, within the loop of Henle, it is going to be what? Selected, reabsorbed back into the vascular system, and that will happen within the peritubular capillaries. Do you understand?
Okay. Yes, sir.
So anything that is being done here is going to get back into the vascular system through here. But this is only doing the secretion, the filtration.
Oh, okay.
Are you getting me? So anything that is not filtered will move out from the efferent arteriole and come here. So it is at this point that homeostasis checkpoint is done. You see that, if it's like I'm having 2% of sodium, but I need 3%. Now, I'm sure most of the sodium are in here. So let's quickly do justice to some of. So this is when we have selective reabsorption. That is one function that is being done here. Okay. I hope your physiology in the physiology, all those things will be explained to you. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So you can see this is the afferent arteriole, and then this is the glomerular apparatus with the podocytes and things, which comes in out over here, and then it is going out of there. So things that are being here are actually oxygenated blood that is going toward the tissues for respiration. Okay, then look at the distal convoluted tubule. It's going near back to the afferent and efferent arteriole. Can you see it? So what is, can you see the simple cuboidal epithelium over here? What is happening here is that when this distal convoluted, so there is some electrolytes that are secreted here. There are some that are secreted here, and there are some that are secreted here. And for anything that is secreted from the collecting that, this is the collecting that, is mainly water. So water is actually reabsorbed into the system. For instance, when the system realizes that there is too much volume of blood in the urine, too much volume of water in the urine, and then there is less amount of water in the blood, what happens is that it's going to do what we call negative feedback. So there is going to be a form of secretion, enhancing of the opening of the pores over here, which will remove water from here back into the system. Do you get that? So that is what is actually happening around this area. So this is just to show us the connection between the glomerular apparatus together with the distal convoluted tubule, which is the messenger cells, okay? The messenger cells. You can also go and read on the macular denser cells, and then which does the monitoring of salinity. So unfortunately, I don't know who is teaching you. Okay, let me not use that sentence. Unfortunately, I don't teach anatomy and physiology together. So whoever is taking physiology will make this one very explainable to you. So from here, what you can see how the loop of Henle is descending? And then can you see how the capillaries are actually going around the loop of Henle? Can you see it? Emmanuel, can you see?
Thank you. Yes,
so
sir.
This is where you have your selective reabsorption and all other things happening. Do you get it now? Okay, so let's continue. So the renal corpuscle, as we said, is the glomerulus plus the Bowman capsule, which makes up the renal corpuscle. You can see the simple cuboidal epithelium here, and you can see that the brush borders on top, known as the microvilli, and then you can see how substances floated into this is the Bowman space. Okay, this is what we call the Bowman space. So substances are secreted into the Bowman space, which is technology, especially for those who are in A class. And then this Bowman space allows for the movement of substances into the proximal convoluted tube. This is just to show a histological display of the Bowman space, the whitish part, and these are the podocytes of the glomerular apparatus. So the podocytes are the secretory unit of the renal capsule of the glomerular apparatus, and then they have fenestrations within which we have the secretion of substances done. Now let's look at the filtration mechanism. I'm just taking my time to explain some bit of the physiology for you. All these things are based on the salinity of the substance that is out and in of the renal capillary. So this is the podocyte. And then we told you the podocyte will have it has a two-layer of what? Epithelium, where you have the parietal epithelium and then the visceral epithelium. So looking at this is the filtration slit, and then these are the pedicles. When we say pedicles, we are talking about the foot of the podocytes. So this is the podocyte of the visceral layer of the glomerular apparatus, that's the Bowman capsule. And then within it, we can have these fenestrations. So you see the endothelial fenestrations. These are the pores. So this is where you have actually the substances moving in and out of the blood. So the pore of the glomerulus prevents filtration of blood. This particular blood cannot move out. Blood cells cannot move out of it. Okay. And then some white cells. So if you have blood cells moving out of this thing, then it means that there is a problem with the filtration slit, okay, or the filtration slit or the pedicles and together, or the podocyte as a whole. So that means that you are suffering from some form of what? Nephritis or some form of what? Nephropathy, so which must be looked at, okay? This is the epithelium, and then this is the endothelium, and this is the basement membrane of the endothelium, okay? So when we say filtration, we are looking at movement of blood plasma from the glomerular apparatus into the Bowman's capsule, the Bowman space. So the process of the product of the whole process is a dilute glomerular filtrate, which is similar to plasma, just that within this filtrate, we don't have blood elements or proteins. Okay, we don't have blood elements or proteins. So it is a plasma without proteins or some form of what element. So let's look at secretion. So movement from capillaries into the tubule via active transport. So this is now your question. This is answering your question. So when things move from the capillaries into the tubule via active transport, which is not filtered or added to the filtrate, that is how secretion is done. So some of the secreted products include hydrogen ions, some nitrogenous weight, and some drugs. Okay. So movement from capillaries into tubule via active transport of materials, not filtered, added to the filtrate. So even within the peritubular capillaries, you may have exchange of materials. If there are too much elements within the blood, they move inside into the loop of Henle, and then vice versa. Reabsorption. So reabsorption, so secretion, you see the definition from secretion. Reabsorption is the inverse of what I said first. Movement from tubules into the capillaries. So here you have 99% of water filtered is being reabsorbed. So the thing is that the electrolytes can only come out if there is much water moving out. The electrolytes cannot come out alone. It moves along with with water. But most of the water that is being secreted will be reabsorbed by reabsorption into the capillary structure, which is the main form for regularizing or regulating blood volume and blood pressure. So other blood substances that are reabsorbed is known as amino acid, glucose, ions, and some water-soluble elements. So Chronicles, are you okay now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in effect, about 180 liters glomerular filtrate is being produced in a day. That is 1 to 2 liters actually become urine. Do you see what is happening? About 180 liters. Do you know 180 liters? Do you see those oil gallons, which we call, how do we even call them? That yellow gallons, how do we call them? They have some nice name.
Sir, jerrycan.
Okay, jerrycan. You see those jerrycan? One is how many? That one is 25 liters. Is that not so?
Yes, sir.
Now, how many 25 liters go into 180 liters? That should answer your question. That is about, let's see, almost 7 and something. Do you get it? So about, look at that amount of blood that is being filtered every day. But eventually, it is only 1 to 2 liters that will become urine. So most of the thing that is being filtered is what? How do we call it? Water. Someone will ask you, fair, but we do not have 180 liters of water or blood in our body. How come we are having about that filtered? What it means is that when in the course of all the filtration that is done in day, when you put all of them, that means they will go and come. Those that are not filtered in the first sense may be filtered in the second one. Those who are not filtered in the second one may be filtered in the third one. So there are a number of filtrations that are done per every cardiac output. In as much as the cardiac, the heart beats over a day, that is the amount of the filtration that is done by the body. Then what happens is that in reabsorption too, we have something we call the antidiuretic hormone. The antidiuretic hormone will stimulate water reabsorption primarily at the distal convoluted tubule. Whilst aldosterone will stimulate the reabsorption of sodium ions and indirectly also water at the DCT. So all these things are just bit of physiology I'm trying to explain to you. So the counter current exchange is actually a method by which ions are secreted and reabsorbed to allow concentration of glomerular filtrate. Now, when you bring out urine and you see that your urine is having more yellowish color, what it means is that we have more electrolytes within the water content. But when you have a whitish urine, what it means is that you have what? Less electrolyte. It doesn't mean you have more water, but less electrolyte, but same amount of water though. So what is happening is that if your urine is becoming more yellowish, it's either you have taken a medication that is being secreted out, or it's either you are, you've eaten something that is taken out, or you have too much ions in the body and they are taken out, or you may have a problem. So that is for that. In the counter current exchange. So these are just few, and I know your physiology lecturer will do much work in the explanation of counter current exchange and other things over there for you. Now let's look at urine storage. Urine is actually stored in the bladder, urinary bladder, and it is eliminated via the urethra. But before it gets to the bladder, the urine will pass through the urethra from the renal pelvis. Okay, so what is happening is that, let me see. Let's go back a bit. Okay, so let me explain it using this one. Can we see the slide? Oh, where's the thing?
Yes, sir.
So what happens is that now when the urine, after selective reabsorption and secretions are done, so secretion is when you have movement from here into here, and selective reabsorption is when you have movement from here into the capillaries. So After everything is done and it finds its way into the papillary duct, this is the collecting duct. It finds its way into the papillary duct. At times there are even other selective reabsorption here. It moves through the renal papillae. This is the renal papillae. You can see some small holes over there. So yeah, this is a drop of urine that has been filtered. This drop of urine, I'm going to show it over here. This drop of urine is actually being dripped from here, this pyramid. So it passes into the minor callus, and then from the minor callus, it enters into the renal papillae and then drips into the major callus. So this is the renal papillae, and then this is the minor callus, and this is the major callus. All the major callus, the urine from there will come into the renal pelvis, and then the renal pelvis will now circulate, will now push the urine through the ureter, and this is what I'm looking at now, the ureter. So in the ureter, so from the renal pelvis, the urine will pass through the ureter and then passes into the bladder. And the ureter actually has 3 layers. We have the adventitia, that's a connective tissue. We have the muscularis, which is made up of inner smooth muscle and outer longitudinal muscle. And then the mucosa here is made up of transitional epithelium. So this is just to show us the bladder. Okay, these are the urethral openings from the posterior surface. And then the muscularis is actually known as the detrusor muscles. And then these detrusor muscles around the inner part, we have the internal urethral sphincter. This one is under autonomic control. You cannot control it yourself. And this is the trigone. Per the stretch of the trigone, which is also in connection with nerves, it tells you when you are feeling for you to go and pass out urine. So what we are seeing here is actually a female's urethra. Okay, this is actually a female's urethra. So here you can see the internal urethral sphincter, and then it passes through this internal urethral sphincter, the urethra, and then comes out of there. So this is where actually you can control the thing from. There's the external urethral sphincter. You can see it is connected to bone. This is a bone. And because it is a bone, this is actually a skeletal muscle. That is why you can control how urine moves out. So the bladder is also located in the posterior pubic pelvic cavity. As I explained, these are the things that we see inside. Now, the difference in the female urethra and the male urethra is that the female urethra is very short. It's about 3 to 4 centimeters long, while the male urethra is very long. Depending on the length of your penis, then you can tell the length of your urethra. So probably if your penis is as long as whatever, I don't know, that is how long your urethra is. Okay, that is for that. So let's look at the male urethra. So you can see the male urethra begins all the way from here, all the way through the peg. So the male urethra has 2 parts. We have the spongy urethra, you have the prostatic urethra, and then you have the membranous urethra. So what is this is that we have the, this is the prostatic urethra, where you have the urethra associated with the prostate gland. So that is why if you are suffering from prostate cancer, the prostate cancer will push on the prostatic urethra. So causing urine to be expelled are very difficult, and you feel those pains. And then this is the membranous urethra, which passes through the external urethral sphincter. And then the longest part of the male urethra is the penile urethra, depending on the length of the penis. So you can see they say it is about 18 centimeters long. So these are some of the clinical importance I would want you to go and discuss. I'm not going to discuss this. Go and talk about urinary tract infections, read on incontinence, interstitial fibrosis, prostatitis or cancer, kidney stones, bladder cancer, and renal failure. At this, I draw the curtains to the renal anatomy. We will start with GIT, but we will have some break. I'll close it so that this one can save us renal urinary system, and I'll upload that as well. Any questions? Yes, Emmanuel.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yeah.
Please, my question is, why is it that someone a BP or someone taking diuretic drugs or someone that takes alcohol, those people frequently urinate? What's the mechanism like? Why is that so?
When we say diuresis, have you done pharmacology?
So please come again.
Have you done pharmacology?
No, sir.
Okay, you drink something we call diuresis. Now, diuresis is channeled to urine formation, okay? Now, when you take diuretic drugs, what happens is that it is going to enhance the activity of the filtrates, okay? Or let me say the kidneys, the nephrons, to do more of what? Filtration. And what is going to happen is that it is also under the control of what? Selective reabsorption, the counter current balance that I told you about, and then osmotic pressure. So when you take these things, this is what is going to happen to you, to open more up the pores to allow for most filtrates to come out. Because when you produce more urine, it is believed that most of the toxic substances within the blood will come out. Now, when you take alcohol, it is all coming to what? Electrolyte balance. So when the electrolyte balance is not very okay, then it is going to allow, based on osmotic pressure, to allow movement of substances via what? Secretion or selective reabsorption to end up in the production of the urine. And you are also taking, let's say, you are a high blood pressure person or hypertensive, let me say hypertensive patient. What is happening is that for hypertensives, you are actually under the control of what? Let me say more pressure from the heart. And then this pressure is actually exposed to the arterial surfaces of the vascular substance or the vessels. So when this happens, there's going to be channeling of blood more into the renal apparatus. And when there is more blood, because the heart rate increases, when there is much increase of heart rate, there is more push of blood into the kidneys, and the kidneys would also what? Have a lot of what? Filtration. This would also in turn put the kidneys on what? A lot of pressure, and then can also subject it to what? A lot of problems in the near future. So eventually, this is what I'll just say about that. Okay, but when you do, by the time you finish renal physiology and then renal pharmacology, you will be able to understand these things more. Do you understand?
Yes. Then my next question, I want to know the functional difference between the podocytes and the mesangial cells.
Okay, let me take you there quickly. The podocyte is the cells that are eventually involved in the secretion, okay? Let me just say in the filtration process. So let's look at it over here. Where's the other one? No. Okay, this plot. So when we say podocytes, look at the podocytes. The podocytes are surrounding all the coiled substances within the glomerular apparatus. So they are actually involved in the secretion or filtration of the substances. For the messenger cells, they are actually connected to the distal convoluted tubules, where you can have some form of exchange of materials via this epithelia back into this the vascular system. So it's just a format for the selective reabsorption we spoke about earlier. And then other thing is that holding also these things more into place so that these things can actually be at the ascending portion, so that the urine can also descend and then ascend, so that this thing doesn't drop eventually. Do you get that?
Yes, sir.
Any other question? Okay, so please let's have a 10 minutes break and then we come back, okay? Thank you very much for making your time to be here. I'll end the meeting and then exactly 6:50, we start another one. That one will just take some few minutes and then we'll be done. Thank you. I'll expect to see all those who logged in earlier to log in again. I have something to discuss with you.